Welcome back to the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and I'm joined as always with my co-host Darian Smith. And guys, it is game week again as our UAB Blazers take on the Charlotte 49ers this Saturday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. This game will be televised on Stadium. We certainly hope that you can make it out to Protective Stadium to watch it in person, but if not, you can catch it on Stadium, and you can also catch it locally on WABM 68. But Darian, I watched a lot of film on Charlotte, and they're 1-5 coming into the game, 0-2 in Conference USA, and they've got a really good quarterback, a couple really good wide receivers, but other than that, man, I just don't know if they have a whole lot to offer. And hey, you go back to Coach Vincent mentioned in his press conference Monday that you go back to the 2017 game where UAB went to Charlotte, and Charlotte hadn't won a game all year or in 2 years, and UAB dropped that game. So we are certainly going to have to take this team serious. But on paper, I think we can say they don't have a lot to offer this year, at least right now through 6 games.
Yeah, John, our listeners know what we are here for. We see the box score numbers, but we are here to provide valuable context. Like, that's what we really want to translate over to you guys. And we sit and we watch film and we go through all of the stories, and we listen to opponents' podcast just to get more info so we can properly translate the context that's within the numbers. I know one thing that you can look at on the box score is, do you know the least amount of points this team has given up to opponents this year?
I do. Oh, man. It's 41.
It's 41 points. Like, we are a couple of games into the season, and that's not a coincidence. Like, so and one thing I've been saying now about our defense is we know who we are. We know what our defense is going to bring. We've done it night in, night out against every single team we face. Win, lose, draw. Our defense has performed well, and David Reeves has put together like a flawless game plan on defense. So that knife cuts both ways.
It does.
If you look at their team, so in contrast to us, man, their defense, when you first cut on the film, John, one thing I said was, God, Lee, this team is not physical at all.
No, not at all.
And we thrive off of physicality, and I think sometimes that, we would be a little over-aggressive and we would get penalties. This team is very much finesse on both sides of the ball. I think, John, like, one thing that they lack is size on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Even when you look on TV, you be like, yeah, this team ain't really big. They're not big at all, and they got pushed around by UTEP.
Yeah.
And UTEP is not a high-scoring team. UTEP is kind of boring on offense. If you look at their offense, it's kind of like us before the Middle Tennessee game without Dubose and without our offensive line. That's what UTEP is. They kind of just try to run the ball down your throat, and they're just going to stick with it no matter what. But they don't have the talent that we have.
No.
And they pushed around that Charlotte front line pretty easily. And then, on the offensive line, they're not big neither. So, I mean, that's the first thing that screamed out at me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking overall at this Charlotte team, as I mentioned earlier, 1-5, 0-2 in Conference USA. They only have one win this year, and that was on the road at a decent Georgia State team out of the Sun Belt. But, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, the least amount of points this team has given up on defense is 41 points. I mean, they have lost all 5 games. Well, they have lost 4 out of their 5 games. They've lost by double digits, and the only one was this past game against UTEP, where 2 weeks ago, where they lost 41-35. But Darren, honestly, this is a desperate team. Charlotte is a very desperate team coming into Birmingham this Saturday, and I mean, they're pretty much going to have to win out to even have a shot at, going bowling this year. And you look at Will Healy, he is a guy that has been mentioned for some Power Five jobs, these last couple years. And I mean, this team just looks awful. Like I just on both now on offense, they do have a very veteran quarterback, Chris Reynolds, who I swear has been there 10 years now. On offense, they're good. I mean, at least they appear to be in stretches. When Chris Reynolds, when healthy, is really a really good quarterback. And when I say when healthy, he's actually missed a couple of games this year. He missed the William & Mary game and Maryland game. Yes, that is William & Mary FCS opponent. And William & Mary defeated Charlotte at Charlotte earlier in the year. So, I mean, this Charlotte program is a mess. This is one of the programs that is coming along with us to the American, so I certainly hope they can get it together. Well, not this week, but after this week, because it's just, and you talk about like recruiting, Darren, earlier. Like Charlotte is a good city, and I just don't see why they haven't been recruiting as well. I mean, I know you've got a lot of G5 teams in that area, where it's App State, James Madison. There's a couple really good. Coastal Carolina is around that area. The Carolinas. But I don't know, man. It's just weird to me that this team is so bad this year. Like I was not anticipating them starting the year 1-5.
Well,
and go
kind of paying attention to some of their people, some of the podcasts and writers on their side. They have been dealing with a lot of injuries now. I don't know how specific those injuries are. I know they have a lot kind of in that defensive backfield, but man, like they're not physical. Like like you said, I don't know if it was like a recruiting error on where to focus. Maybe they tried to hit the portal. Some people get caught up in the glitz and the glamour of the portal, and maybe they tried to hit the portal. I heard some of their guys talking about that they kind of skipped out on the high school guys, the development side. One thing about UAB is we always get a good mixture, and once we get things going, we get needs filled. We start getting those high school guys, and we always redshirt them, and they're developing. So by the time you see a Kobe Dempsey or Trey Badowski when they play, they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in the program for 2-3 years. They're like redshirt sophomores. They are like muscle bound by the time they hit the field, and there's no lacking. And there's no lacking what we in depth, and we develop well. I don't know if Charlotte has created that culture. That's very important to have that culture of development, especially in the G5. We have to find those diamonds in the rough, and we have to polish them off. I don't know if they've done it. Now, Reynolds, like you stated already, he's a really good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great quarterback, but you know why he stay injured? The offensive line.
Yeah, they're not good. They are not good at all.
The offensive line is not really impressive. Like they're undersized, but most of the times, if you have an undersized offensive line, that's cool. I was an undersized offensive lineman. I was a dog. I was quick. They don't seem to have that dog per se. It's kind of like you just kind of see it in the play. Mm-hmm. They don't have it, and he take a lot of shots, and it's crazy because they have a big three of receivers. Like they have some great weapons, and especially Grant Dubose out there. Great speed, great size. I kind of wonder if you put a competent offensive line and above average running back room in there, would they be kind of comparable to UTSA's weapons that they have? Because these guys are good, but and the quarterback is great. Like I think they can compare to them, but they can't really show that off. You don't have adequate time. And honestly, I don't know about the scheme. I didn't understand all the hype about Will Healy. Maybe I'm not informed enough, but some of the play calls I saw, I was kind of like, why are you running that?
Mm-hmm.
In certain situations. But like I said, I want to stick to. I think this game, just to kind of veer off from them, this is going to be, and I know UAB fans probably won't like it, but one thing I love about Nick Saban, he's established a culture of it's about what we do, no matter who we play.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a FCS team, it could be Texas A&M. That is what Nick Saban does, and it's they work that into the psyche of the whole team, everybody, coaches, everybody. This is one of those games. Yes, we should beat them. Like, we should kind of kill them, to be honest. We should kill them, especially stylistically. We're the most physical team in conference, and they're the least physical team. To be honest.
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, we should. I mean, there's a reason why this line in Vegas opened up. UAB is a 21-point favorite. I think it's up to 24.5 at the time of recording. But you're exactly right, Darian. Like, in college football, it is very important to establish a culture. And, Bryant Vincent is trying to establish that, or continue to establish that culture, from where Bill Clark left off. But this is one of those type of team, or one of these type of games that UAB should, on paper, just absolutely destroy this team. Like, Charlotte, on paper, on film, they are not, overall very impressive at all. And especially that defense is just their defense is one of the worst. It's not going to be worse than Alabama A&M's defense, but it's going to be pretty close, because this defense is giving up 41 plus points a game. They are ranked 130th out of 131 FBS teams worst in defending the run.
Yeah.
See, it's one of the worst rush defenses in the country. And, hey, you look at defending the pass, buddy, they're not much better. They're ranked 120th out of 131 teams. So,
wow.
Stat-wise, film-wise, this defense is awful. So, they're giving up over 537 yards per game. They're not, as you mentioned earlier, they're not a good physical team. And on defense, they're not good at tackling. Like, one play against UTEP really stood out to me in film study, where there was just a normal kind of 4 or 5 yard run from the running back for UTEP, but it turned into a 30 to 35 yard run because nobody tackled him. Like, they were just literally dragging him 30 yards. A couple of the Charlotte players were trying to strip the ball, but really he was dragging those guys. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, if the UTEP running back's able to do this, just wait till they see Dubose in school, because they should, on paper, have a field day against this defense.
But let's think about it. I think it's kind of like what Middle Tennessee did. If you know, and Will Hilly knows, he knows his team. If you know that you're going to get bludgeoned during the run, what are you going to do? You're going to say, hey, we're going to take our chances. You guys are not going to be able to repeat that Middle Tennessee performance through the air. I'm going to stack the box. I'll put 9. I'll put 10 in the box, But you guys are going to have to throw the ball. So that I think if I was them, that's what I would do. I'm blitzing. I'm sending guys. What do you have to lose?
But to be honest, man, I mean, we can just go Rhino and just ground and pound the whole game. This is one of those games that, we've preached balance on the offense, which UAB and Bryant Vincent showed this past Saturday against Middle Tennessee. But honestly, bro, like, this Saturday, like, you could just be almost one-dimensional and just rush it down their throat the whole game.
Exactly what you mean by that. And that's like tempting. That's kind of like we're kind of guaranteed to win. But what I saw against Middle Tennessee was that balance that we've been longing for.
Right.
That balance. So I think one thing that we're trying to do is what I noticed was a program that was in the midst of adding to culture. So at UAB, what we're known for is being physical, being aggressive, sometimes over-aggressive. Like, the first person I think of is like Gary Marino. It's like this physical, aggressive, in-your-face team, and we're going to bring it, and we're tough, and we're going to play you all the way through the fourth quarter. And it's mostly just, running the ball, pounding it down your throat with a good defense. And we kind of work off of that. One thing I think we're trying to build end. It's like, no, we're a team we can air it out on you. If you're not careful, we're balanced. We can't run it, but we can throw it too. We can put up 400 yards passing on you. Or we can. So I think what we're trying to do is build not only the physical aspect, it's the IQ aspect. It's like, no, we smart. We play good football.
Yeah.
Kind of how App State is. They play good, clean football for the most part. And that translates into wins, especially in the tight ones. You need that. And I think we're witnessing a program that's trying to develop consistency. So that's why I think this game is more important for what we do. Like, there's nothing Charlotte can do against what we have. Honestly, schematically, there's nothing really they can do except play their hearts out. And sometimes the ball, you don't know which way to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
But they're gonna come out and they're gonna play hard. That's a team desperate. They already know. They looking at the line and saying, "Oh, everybody think they feel disrespected." Chris Reynolds is a very good quarterback. Those weapons they're very good. You never know what can happen out there on the edge. All those offensive linemen have to do is just hold up just enough. He can make something happen. So they're going to play desperate. I think it's all about, can we be the team that we saw against Middle Tennessee? That I believe that's us. But that team that's not committing penalties, that's playing smart, that's not worried about trash talking and fighting, that we just play good, clean football within the whistles, and we win, and we focus, and we execute, and we focus on the details. If we're that team, that's what I'm really looking to see. Are we going to stack that up and show that we have grown into that, and we start embedding that into the fabric of our culture? Can we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I mean, and one thing too that I was going to bring up, that one of those weapons that we've already hit on a little bit, Grant Dubose, for the wide receiver that helps Chris Reynolds look as good as he has been. He's from Montgomery, Alabama. So he is from Montgomery. Yes, so I'm sure he'll have a tangent, of family friends. They're at the game this Saturday, and also another guy, the running back Shadrick Byrd, from Alabaster. I think he played at Thompson High School. I mean, he'll have some family and friends in the state. So there is something to play for Charlotte. And like I mentioned off the top, this is a desperate team that is going to have to win out to get to a bowl game, and they're going to come in. I'm sure they're going to try to swing their best punch early on against UAB. So it's, in my opinion, critical that UAB can jump. I don't know if we can get off to as good of a start as we did against Middle Tennessee, but if we can, just put this team away as quick as possible. And also, like, I should have, this is not so great podcasting, but I should have looked back at the Rice game last year and seen what that point spread was. If I recall correctly, I think it was about around where this Charlotte game is. I think it was around 21 points, and we saw what happened last year against Rice. So UAB will have to come in focused and just put this Charlotte 49er team away as soon as possible to just take away any hope that they have of winning this ball game Saturday.
That's like what we should. Like I said, that's why the rest of this season is important for us as a program, as a culture. Like, what is UAB football? Are we that team? Are we the Rice? Are we that team that we can't, win the big ones, or we can't put our foot on the throat, that's going to commit the penalties, like you said about the spread last year against Rice? Well, guess what? We didn't execute a lot, and we had a lot of critical penalties in that game last year. We did not play smart, just like we did this year, But then all of a sudden we come back to Middle Tennessee, and we showed the potential that what we can be. And I think that, like we already alluded to, like Brian Vincent and his play calling, I think part of that improvement was him too.
Mm-hmm.
He committed to something different and say, hey, we're going to throw it. We're going to get it to our playmakers. And Schrapp all of a sudden looked like he was unbeatable.
Conference USA Player of the Week.
Conference USA Player of the Week, just like that. He wasn't really doing much in those games earlier, and then all of a sudden, here we are, And you can tell it was a concerted effort to get him the ball. And it wasn't force feeding. It was, hey, okay, we got the look, we finna go to our guy, And if this is who we are going forward, I think this is so important. Like, I can't stress how important this is, because if you already know, like, you know how hard it is to start working out. Like, but once you start working out and you get into a rhythm, it all of a sudden it becomes part of who you are. You
Just
feel
second nature, yeah.
second nature. You don't feel right if you don't work out. So if we can continue to just be this team that executes, we care about the details, all of a sudden then we're not committing these dumb penalties and stuff like that. All of a sudden we're that physical team and we've added this layer into our culture. I think that this program can go far because we got another recruit. We got another commit this weekend. Wake Forest bounce back. Defensive end, how Coach Kyle Tatum like him on the end, 6'5",
Yes.
250, physical. And we already have those good defensive linemen. We already have good high school commits already. We talked about earlier. Man, we have something going, something special with our program. I think what fans has been, what we've been frustrated about is like we kind of seem to be stuck in neutral. We've been in the same spot for a while, right? Like,
right.
And we're trying to figure out how to get to that next level. Well, I really think this season already has shown us how to get there, and it lies within the team and the coaches. And I really want BV to be able to stay. I want BV to prove everybody.
Me too.
We always talk about how good of a guy he is and how much those kids love him. Well, love isn't gonna keep you your job. Performance is. So that's why I'm really, really rooting for him to like really perform. And he's already got those kids bought in. Buy-in is not the question. It's about taking his next step. And I really want him to be the guy because he's been here so long. He's one of us now.
Mm-hmm.
And I want him to be the guy to lead us into the AAC and really take this program to the next step. So I think these games will show who we are and what are we building into.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Darian. Like you could tell Brian Vincent bleeds green and gold and how much this program means to him. Obviously he's been here for so long. Back in 2014 and then since 2018 to now. I mean, I 100% agree that I, want BV to be that guy, going forward. And hey, if we look like how we did last Saturday against Middle Tennessee going forward, I mean, that was one of the best offensive performances I've seen, since the return for UAB. And we've had, and just the balance of the pass and run, like 100% agree with you that I want BV to, lead us into the future. And hey, he's got some tough games ahead. This game shouldn't be tough. But after this game, we've got 2 games on the road, Western Kentucky and FAU. Those are not going to be easy. But hey, we'll have to see going forward. But do you want to give predictions now for the Charlotte game?
Oh yeah, so you already know we over 40. Oh well, first of all, I did want to mention that it was cool that Skull wore the jersey of BV's niece.
I did not know that until post game. Yeah, I didn't know that, but that is awesome. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so for the listeners that didn't know, Skull wore the jersey of BV's niece. I believe it said Joy like Anna on the back of his jersey. And did she pass away? I believe
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to me that just shows the connection, right? It's something special about that, and I know that meant a lot to him and his family. So I really wanted to mention that. And I love stories like that, and I just want to be able to see that grow. Like he's one of us, man. And I know we complain and we get frustrated, but it's like we used to do that with our brothers and sisters growing up,
Yeah, right.
But at the end of the day, family is family, and I really want him to win out. I want him to beat everybody on the schedule. I want him to beat LSU, and I just want him to be the best coach, in G5 or in P5 also. So, but yeah, prediction wise, yeah. So let's start. We have a floor of 41.
You're right.
So I would say UAB 48. Charlotte 17.
Dude, no way. Okay, I've got it 49-17 UAB. And
Yeah.
I just have in my notes, number 1, be smart. Number 2, establish run game early. And number 3, make sure that we wrap up on defense. Because, as we mentioned, Dubose, a couple talented wide receivers for Charlotte that are good in open space, and they do make some guys miss. So I think, that third point is going to be critical on defense. But hey, we know Coach Reeves, that defense, they've been really good about, tackling in space. So I trust that they can. But those are my 3 points. Just be smart,
So
get that
how
run
would
game
you
going
play it?
early, and wrap up.
How would you play it on defense? They got those weapons. Would you attack the offensive line, or would you do the special thing we've been doing with this 3-down lineman
Dude,
and run?
honestly, I'm being aggressive. I'm man press and blitzing. I mean,
Mm,
just put it on them. And I mean, the way Reynolds, like, you can tell sometimes he gets so shook because he knows he's got to get rid of that ball so quick. And when he sees Forte, Fish, or Tyler Taylor, Wilder coming at him, I mean, I hope it's a long day for him.
yeah, that's interesting. I probably because we've used this 3-down lineman thing, and I think why
Well,
it works.
see, I think we're going to need to do that next week against WKU.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm more kind of like be aggressive this week and put a little pressure on them.
I think we used it. I think we used it differently against Middle this past week because we used it some on first, second, or whatever, but it depended on. I realized like we used it just no matter what against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, good point.
Used it in situations against Middle, and then when we got them to third and 9 or third and 11 or something like that, we were sending them like it was like cross both linebackers, cross blitz Tyler Taylor, Noah Wilder, pressure, and it ended up in sacks a lot. So I think we're gonna do something like that again. It's gonna be like situational blitzes, and I think on first and second down, depending on the distance, we're gonna kind of play it conservative and safe and kind of try to make them go the length and limit those big plays. But once we got you in our crosshairs, we coming after you because there's no way we send blitz on and it's 3rd and 13. There's
Yeah.
no way they're gonna be able to. I mean, I'm sorry, I've seen this line, man. I'm an offensive line guy. I will be upset if we sit there and let this team block us, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially if we send them. And so what I think that does against those weapons is we don't have to hold up so long, you know. And yeah, we're good in the back end. So you tell our back end just to hold up for 3 seconds and just sit on the route. We're gonna be good. So we're gonna see. But I think we win. We win big. But this is a culture builder. I want people to know this is a culture builder game. I don't want us coming up and messing around and playing around. I want us
Yeah.
doing what we can
What's
do.
the saying? What's the saying, Darren? What do some people say? Like playing down to your competition. Like we don't want that this Saturday.
No, because I think that plays into we really were that team that Rice face. That's
Right.
really, I think that's what that says. But if we're really worried about building this culture in this program and building this team, we need to focus on our habits. If we can build our habits, we're gonna be a force. But I think the players got a taste of that. I think the coaches got a taste of that, and I don't think nobody wants. We don't want to go back as a fan base,
Mm-hmm.
and so the players don't want to go back. You realize the potential of what you can be. Just be that. That's the team that beat BYU. Be that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't want us to have to transform into them all the time. We need to be like the Hulk. The Hulk is like always the Hulk. That's what we need.
Yes, I love it. Well, guys, we actually had the pleasure of being joined by Hunter Bailey, who covers the Charlotte 49ers for the Charlotte Observer, and he also hosts his own podcast that's covering Charlotte called the Highway 49 Podcast. So definitely give that a listen, but make sure that you give him a follow on Twitter at Hunter_Bailey45. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and roll our interview that we had with Hunter. Everybody to the Blazer Victory podcast, where we are pleased to be joined by Hunter Bailey, who covers the Charlotte 49ers program and writes for the Charlotte Observer and also hosts a podcast called the Highway 49 Podcast. But Hunter, thank you so much for just taking some time out this Monday evening just to talk some Charlotte 49er football with us.
Oh yeah, appreciate you guys reaching out and having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you are not already following Hunter on Twitter, definitely give him a follow at Hunter_Bailey45. He's a great follow for all things Charlotte. But let's just go ahead and get into it, Hunter. Obviously Charlotte's coming into Birmingham this Saturday, 1-5, 0-2 in Conference USA play. I mean, in general, just what has gone wrong for Charlotte this year? Because I myself didn't anticipate a 1-5 start for this 49ers program under Will Healy for the 2022 season.
Yeah, man, that's been the message around the program is disappointment. I actually talked with Mike Hill, the athletic director, earlier in this week. He said they're evaluating all options in terms of turning this around, keeping their fan base happy, stuff like that. And yeah, being a 23.5 point underdog against a conference foe is not where you expected this team to be this year. And kind of what went wrong, I would say, first play of the second quarter in week 0 against FAU, you see Chris Reynolds go down. And I don't think that maybe doesn't change their entirety of their record, but I think they definitely beat William and Mary had Reynolds been in the lineup. Outside of that, I would just say troublesome defense, man. You can't expect your offense to score 40 plus a game, and you're seeing. They have to do that. They're giving up over 45 points per contest. They've given up 40 in 9 straight games, 56 points in 3 of those. It's tough, and I think the pressure kind of started to mount in the back half of last year of the offense knowing like, all right, we really have to score almost every time out. And I think that's just been more of a continuation there this year. And you're seeing the frustration in the fan base. You're seeing a lot of angst between the staff and the fans. There were a lot of boos in that UTEP game, especially when UTEP was up 41-21, and you're, like I say, it's tough times for Charlotte right now.
Yeah, you said over 40 in 9 straight games. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
How does that happen? Is that injuries, or is that schematic, or what is that recruiting? Where does that? How I don't even know how that happens.
Yeah, I would say this year. Well, let me back up. Last year, it was a lot of the fans were looking at it like, okay, it can't get any worse than this. It's going to improve, and it's actually gotten about 15 to 20% worse in terms of yardage and points going into this year. I would say this year is mainly the lack of talent in the secondary, and then a lot of injuries as well. They've lost one of their better safeties, Marcus Robitaille, for the season. They lost Tank Robinson for a couple games. And they lost their best cover corner, Trey Kramer, with an ACL. So it's just been a lot of ups and downs for the 49ers in terms of who's going to play. And I think coming off this bye week could be a big help for them getting some folks back, but there still are a lot of missing pieces on that defense.
So I guess, Hunter, is Will Healy on the hot seat? And if so, if you do think he is, it's just weird to me because, just not even last year or 2 years ago, this was a guy that was being mentioned for a lot of P5 openings, and he was great at Austin P. First, would you say that he's on the hot seat currently?
I don't know if I would call it the hot seat. I don't really anticipate Charlotte making like a knee-jerk reaction and moving on from him. And you kind of, and that's basically kind of what you said. A year ago at this time, literally a year ago today, Charlotte was 4-2, had just beaten Duke, first Power 5 win off to the best start in program history. But you combine the back half of last year when they lost 5 of their last 6. And now you're looking at this year, they've lost 5 of 6. That's a long year. And 2019, the first bowl game, first winning season, that feels like a long time ago now. And you're you're knowing, okay, Chris Reynolds, this is his last year with the program. And they saw some flashes with Xavier Williams of being the future. And I think that he really could kind of step into that role moving to the American. But like this is a pivotal time for Charlotte. And I think how you finish these last 6 games in Conference USA is gonna either, show momentum or the lack thereof going into the American. Because I mean, UAB, UTSA, North Texas, Rice, FAU, and Charlotte. All 6 of those teams, the past 18 games, Charlotte has the worst record. And that's not where you want to be making the jump. And so I think whether you call it the hot seat or not, I think there's a lot of pressure there, and I think there's a lot of pressure on these last 6 games for sure.
So,
you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, so going into this game specifically, let's throw away the spread and just focus on the game for a second. What would it take, in your opinion, for Charlotte to come out of Birmingham and get the W?
I think their defense is going to have to step up in the run defense department. I mean, UAB just rushed for over 300 yards on Middle Tennessee. It was like a 2 or 3 headed monster. Dwayne McBride, Jermaine Brown, yeah, both went for 100 plus in the past game. It's I think the run defense for sure is going to have to show up, and I think that they're going to have to score a lot of points. That's been Charlotte's best chance to win, is to get off to that hot start and maybe create a takeaway here or there. They had a stretch, 3 straight games with takeaway. They're going to need to get that back going and really just play sound football on defense. And like I say, that's been few and far between, but their defense has tightened up when it's mattered in games. Like in the UTEP game, for example, they were down 41-21, were able to rally, and defense forced a late 3 and out to get the offense, the chance to win the game with 1:30 to play. Like obviously they didn't get the win, but it's come through when it's mattered, and they're really gonna need that going in. As I said, like 23-point dog in this one.
Well, Hunter, can you talk just a little bit about what Chris Reynolds has meant to this Charlotte program? I mean, from an outsider, I feel like that dude's been there like 20 years now. He's been there a long time. What he has some records, but what exactly has he meant to this program?
I'm on record of saying they need to build a statue for the guy. He's been, I mean, at least in my opinion, like the heart and soul of the team. And it's funny. So he missed Georgia State game and he missed the Maryland game, or he missed William and Mary in Maryland and came back for Georgia State.
Right.
And after the game, we were talking to some of the players, and Derek Boykins, the linebacker, was just talking about how much Reynolds meant, saying like the whole team feels better knowing he's in the game. And I mean, that's every unit. And that's wild to me, because I mean, you reinsert a 6-year senior in the starting lineup and everyone feels better. It makes a ton of sense.
Right.
For what Chris Reynolds has done. I mean, I think he's got 6 game-winning drives in his career, and he is that consistency. He knows how to calm people down. He doesn't get rattled by the moment, and he's Mr. Consistent. He's exactly what you would want in a quarterback and a team captain. So he's definitely meant a ton to this program, and I think he's keeping them afloat. I mean, I think they're winless. Does he not just go into God mode against Georgia State there a few weeks ago? So definitely gonna enjoy watching him play in a Charlotte uniform these next 6 games.
Yeah, and also you guys have 3 good receivers out there. I want you to speak to what they're good at, in their own, in the vacuum, and in what they do specifically. And I also wanted to know what was your thoughts on you guys' offensive line. So the receivers first, and then your thoughts on the offensive line second.
Yeah. So I'll start with Victor Tucker. He's the 5th-year senior, 6-year senior. He's been there about as long as Chris Reynolds has. And Victor is very technical. He's a great route runner. You can get him involved in the screen game. He can make plays after the catch. But my favorite thing about his game is how technical he is and how he just understands exactly where he needs to be on the field. If it's 3rd and 12, he's 13 yards down the field. He's sitting right there at the marker. He's going to move the chains. That's his game, and he's reliable in the clutch. Moving to Elijah Spencer. Elijah Spencer actually leads his team in yards this year with over 500 and is on pace to be the first 49ers receiver to go over 1,000 yards in the FBS, which would be a really cool feat for him, especially considering in the Big Three article I wrote talking to them this offseason, he said he was Chris Bosh. So he's definitely not playing like Chris Bosh, but no slight to Chris Bosh. But yeah, Elijah Spencer's yards after the catch, he is elite in that department, and he has been huge for Charlotte, emerging as a true sophomore. And then Grant Dubose, I think Grant Dubose, he's got NFL written all over him. He's one of those guys that turns a 50-50 ball into an 80-20, and you just throw it up to him. He'll go get it. He's got the speed to beat you deep. He's got the physicality to go over the middle, take those hits, and he's, like I say, he's caught 7 touchdowns, which a funny stat is he has as many touchdowns as Iowa's offense does this season. So that's kind of funny, but the wideouts are definitely the best unit on this team.
Yeah, Grant Dubose, I mean, that's the guy that really popped off for me looking at the film. 6'3", 200, and he's from Alabama too. That studying up for this game, I didn't realize he was from Montgomery, Alabama. So I'm sure he'll have a contingent of family and friends at the game Saturday, and he's going to want to perform. But what I love about watching Grant, it's just exactly what you just said, Hunter. He can turn, a 50-50 into a 80-yard touchdown pass or reception. Like, he is so elusive in the open field, and like he just makes guys miss. Like, I don't know. I enjoy watching him play. I'm gonna hope that I enjoy watching him, play this Saturday, and where he doesn't do a whole lot. But definitely, Dubose is the guy that definitely pops off on the film for this Charlotte offense. And I guess kind of I want to piggyback on what Darian was asking, kind of about the offensive line, Hunter. Like, is this O-line just this bad? Because you can tell, when Reynolds is out there, like he just seems to get beat up every game that he goes out there. Like, is the offensive line just that bad, or are they inexperienced, or is it injuries, or what?
I think the offensive line it's definitely solid. They have some of the pieces back from last year, and Ashton Gist, Panda Askew at left guard. TJ Moore is back. He plays tackle, but he's had a real struggle this year, and we've seen some of Matt Rosso, a Rutgers transfer, kind of take over that role at tackle. I think it's just more of some inconsistencies, really. And Reynolds does take a lot of hits. He's sometimes he'll hold on to the ball for too long. That is one knock on his game. But I would say really their main issue is the run game. Like, pass protection is decent enough. They give Chris the time to stand back there and throw the ball, but they just really haven't had any run game at all this year. And I think that's part of the struggles, because, I mean, I mentioned 2019 earlier, they had Benny LeMay, running back, to turn around and hand the ball to 20 to 25 times a game. And you knew, like, all right, this guy, if he gets 20 touches, he's probably going over 100 yards. And now they haven't had a 100-yard rusher since Middle Tennessee last year, when Calvin Camp, I think, ran for 101 yards. And they haven't really had any explosiveness in the run game, and they need that. Like, we saw Shadrick Byrd get his season high of 80 yards last week, and you want more of that, but they got to continue to, I guess, commit to the run game. But it's kind of a two double-sided coin, because I think the offense's best attack is spread the field, let Chris Reynolds cook, find the big three, and then get the running backs involved in the screen game. That's been Charlotte's biggest success, but at the same time, you can't just completely ignore the run,
Right. And I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Hunter, because I was going to ask, like, why hasn't the run game gotten established? Because you look at Shadrick Byrd, I mean, this is another guy from Alabama, from Alabaster, Alabama. I mean, but again, only 68 rushes for 278 yards and just one touchdown. Do you attribute the run game not getting established due to the style of offense that Will Hilly likes to, as you just mentioned, spread it around and throw it with Reynolds, or is it something else?
It was kind of funny going into the season during media day. The offensive coordinator Mark Carney said he wanted this offense to be a ground and pound offense, and when he said it, I was admittedly shocked, just knowing the talent that they have at the wideout position. And it looked like in the FAU game they wanted to run the ball more, but then they would end up in, okay, 2-yard run, 2nd and 8. Then they're throwing 2nd and 8. You don't complete that, it's 3rd down. They ran into that quite a bit. It was like killing their drives. And I think that's kind of when they started shifting to, okay, more of a pass first offense. Let's just put the ball in Reynolds' hands and see what happens. But one other thing I think is worth mentioning that's a lot different is that Chris Reynolds is not running with the football anymore. I think back in 2019 rushed for 747 yards, and they had the option game going at a ridiculous rate, and he was just making people miss. And that was a whole new layer to the offense that they don't have right now. He hasn't pulled the ball down and ran much at all, and I think that's really kind of taken that element away, and that's also hurting the run, obviously, like the rushing stats without having those quarterback yards too.
Well, I've just got one more question. Darian, do you have anything before I ask my last question?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. My audio had cut out for a quick second, so I was a little absent for a little bit. But I wanted you to be able to speak because when I looked at film, and I really want your take on it because you've obviously seen all the games. Is when I looked at the games, I saw a lack of physicality. Like when I watch UAB, I think that's like our biggest. I think it can almost be a detriment to us because it causes us to be over aggressive and sometimes we get penalized. I saw a team that was more so finesse. But you watch all of the games. Would you say that's accurate, or is there something I'm missing here?
I have not personally seen a game this year where I thought Charlotte was the more physical team, so I can agree with what you're saying there. I think that they have some physical dudes out there. Like you watch Tank Robinson, the safety, Derek Boykins, linebacker. You watch Amir Sadiq, defensive end. Like they have some guys, but I just don't think it's the unit as a whole. And I think you guys asked earlier what Charlotte has to do to win this game, and that is a great point that I should have mentioned. Is they're going to have to be like 100% physical, and they're going to have to really try and take it to UAB. And I think that's going to be the difference for sure. Because if you're asking me, I think the Blazers are going to dominate the line of scrimmage, and that's been a common theme this year for Charlotte. And they're going to need those big guys in the trenches to step up. But in terms of physicality, I think that, like I say, there's some dudes on this team that have that, but I wouldn't say the unit as a whole is like a physical specimen. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know I've said it in our preview. I just wanted a chance to I wanted to see your side of it because I thought it was very, I thought it stood out. I thought it was like, well, watching the UTEP game, you see them collide. The running backs collided with the linebackers, and running backs a lot of times will keep going, or you'll see the push off the line, or you see the lack of run game, or most of the time it was like a skilled player making a play versus a hole being mauled open. I was wondering if I was missing any kind of context in that because I didn't see it. I saw great quarterback play. That's about it, and great receiver play.
Yeah, they're really explosive. Like I wouldn't be shocked to see them put up points. I just think that the pressure, like I mentioned earlier, the pressure to do it every possession just really catches up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Hunter, last question. So I know the season isn't going how the Charlotte fans would want it to go. But you still got basketball season, and I still think that this Charlotte football program can be something special. Now, whether that's still under Will Healy or somebody else, I don't know. But what do you gather from your readers and also your listeners to your podcast from Charlotte fans about their overall thoughts on moving to the AAC next year? Like, are they still excited? Or what do you gather?
Yeah, I definitely think there's more excitement and the exposure, like the added resources, the extra funding for the university, and then I think like the expansion of the football stadium, the Evergreen Master Plan in terms of all of the additions to campus, whether it be basketball, women's basketball, softball, baseball, lacrosse. Like there's expansions and more money flowing in to all 19 sports programs on campus. I think there is a lot of excitement there. I think football specifically, fans are nervous because I mean you're seeing Conference USA competition and it's a struggle. I mean they're a 23.5 point dog against a Conference USA foe,
Right.
So it's like I don't know if you're super excited about that first year in the American, but I think what it means as a program, especially a program that's only 10 years old, I think there is a lot of hope like on the horizon as far as that goes, but I think they're definitely looking for some like momentum, something to hang their hat on going into that conference because I mean next year Charlotte has non-conference games at Maryland, at Florida, and then they'll have obviously the AAC schedule. And in my opinion, that's a little bit tougher than Conference USA, especially with the Conference USA teams moving over.
Right.
And so, I mean, that first year, I think, let me back up real quick. I think this offseason is huge. I think it's the biggest they've ever had. They have to recruit well. They have to figure out, is Healy back? Is there going to be another face? They have to figure out the quarterback situation. There's a ton of moving pieces this offseason. I think how these final games go leading into that is also huge. You don't want to go in your last year of Conference USA and struggle as severely as they are. And I think there's some toss-up games left. Like they have FIU in 2 weeks. They have Louisiana Tech. They have Rice. There's some games, some winnable games in that schedule. But you guys know how Conference USA football is, man. Any given Saturday.
Wonky.
Oh yeah.
So how would you attack that recruiting process? Like, is that filling immediate needs with JUCO and portal guys, or just sticking to it and developing high school guys?
I think if it were me, and this has me wishing I could like play the NCAA, the new video game that comes out next year.
Yeah, we all can't wait for that.
Oh yeah. If it were me, man, I would do like 80% high school guys because that's your foundation. Those are your 3, 4, sometimes 5-year guys, and then I would try and fill immediate holes with the portal because like Charlotte has gotten greedy in the transfer portal, and I think it's worked out for them on a lot of aspects. But their problem is they have the guys for a year, and then they're turning around trying to fill that hole again. And maybe that younger guy that could have gotten those reps a year before doesn't have as much exposure, and then they're kind of back in that same situation. And I think that also plays to the chemistry aspect of the defense when you have 7, 8 new starters on the defensive side of the ball. If the group doesn't mesh, you end up where you are now, where you're giving up all these points, all these yards. And I think one thing that I want to highlight real quick too is there was like a lot of uncertainty for Charlotte in terms of who is going to be the defensive coordinator of this group from November 2021 to February of 2022. And I think that they missed out on some recruits from that. And I think that overall, as a unit, just missing that 3-month gap leading up into spring ball was huge. Because, I mean, you can still be working on your installs. I mean, NCAA granted the extra time with the coaches and the players. I think it was like 8 hours this year. And so I just think that they missed out on a lot of that time. and you're kind of seeing the results of it. Here we are now in October of 22. So it's been a tough go of it, at least this season for sure.
Definitely. Well, Hunter, thanks again, man, for just coming on this Monday evening to talk some Charlotte 49er football with us. And again, guys, if you are not following Hunter on Twitter, give him a follow at Hunter_Bailey45 and check out his work for the Charlotte Observer. But thanks again, Hunter. Darian, do you want to lead us out, buddy?
Blazer Nation, let's ride.